Couple of minutes. I just saw some questions coming up. Welcome today for our time. I love this. So M. Stevens says, I carry all of my stress in my shoulders and neck. I feel like my shoulders are up by my ears when I do the rest assess. Are there any melt moves that can help? Yeah, for sure. I would be working with the neck release sequence and a hand treatment, sternal decompress. The whole upper body rehydrate with sternal decompress is a wonderful one for when you're kind of feeling like you're holding on to things, right? So a lot of people do, like their body, and that's actually some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. Like when we actually assume these postures that are so strange in our that don't benefit us. They serve no purpose for us in the long haul of what we're trying to do to better ourselves. So we can definitely talk about that a little bit. Maybe I can show you the neck turn reach is also a fantastic move to learn to perfect. So we can talk about that one as well. We're going to get going in 1 minute. You guys are more than welcome to put where you guys are at, say hello. If you guys have been with me over these last couple of weeks and there was a move or something that you wanted to know about, make sure that you put something here and I can definitely take a look as we go. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a education this afternoon on the core is what we're going to be talking about. Hang on one second. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being part of our session today. I'm Sue Hitson. I'm the creator of the MELT Method. Hey, if you are new to our YouTube channel, make sure that you subscribe to the page. Click on that little button below. And if you are not a member of MELT On Demand is my streaming platform. There's there's probably about 300 videos now that are based on pain performance and lifestyle enhancement to improve our bodies so that we minimize pain, we improve our performance, decrease our risk of injury. And our goal in MELT is to educate you guys on the two systems of the body that diet and exercise don't really directly address, which is your neurofascial system, the autonomic aspects of your nervous system that support, protect, and stabilize us without our voluntary control or conscious awareness. That's what we call the autopilot in MELT. So I'm going to be talking about the autopilot today because for sure a lot of us have neurological instability and we have no idea what that is, but we certainly have the symptoms that would say that is true. And we're also going to be talking about the connective tissue system, what's scientifically known as fascia, which is the three-dimensional infrastructure under your skin that supports, protects, and stabilizes all aspects of your body, not just your postural alignment, but fascia plays a role in your structural, emotional, chemical, neurological, psychological stability, right? Because connective tissue is the supportive infrastructure that every other cell, blood vessel, nerve, organ relies upon to function efficiently. It is the environment that these systems live in. And daily living causes this issue in our connective tissue that can ultimately break down the potential for this system to stabilize us. And when our nervous system is fighting to maintain stability, we get symptoms that really are noticeable, from joint pain to muscle aches to poor posture, but more importantly, if you never do anything to restore the fluid flow of fascia, which is so important to move fluids through our joints, because your nervous system is relying on figuring out where your joints are in relationship to the gravitational force of the earth to maintain your upright posture. So if our connective tissue, which is all around joints, is loaded with what we call stuck stress or fascial dysfunction, you get symptoms that, again, are beyond muscle and bone problems. All of a sudden, you're finding that in the middle of the day, you're exhausted. You feel like you've got to have some caffeine or some sugary foods to pep you up. But at night, for as exhausted as you felt in the day, you can't wind down. And you're waking up in the middle of the night most often to go to the bathroom. But then you have a hard time going back to sleep. And if this is sounding like you, what I would tell you is that your neural core, which is one of the other models in MELT that I tried to describe, what's called the neuromyofascial channel. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today, is our core system is not a muscle system. I've been doing this a long time and trying to explain these things to a wide array of professionals and the general public, but our core isn't just a muscle system. It's not transversus abdominis multifidus, the pelvic floor, and the diaphragm. There's much more to it. The neurocore is a dual neurofascial stabilizing system comprised of neurological reflexes and mechanisms that are functioning completely involuntarily without your conscious control or your voluntary control of any sort, your conscious awareness. You don't have to think about this system functioning. And its primary job is to maintain the connection and the integrity for our organs so that our organs function well, because we need organs to function well to live, but also to help to mitigate information from the ground through what we call our masses and spaces, which is another model to say all your joints and your bones, to send vibration and frequency through your body so that you maintain an upright posture and can actually move forward. Now here's the thing, your neurological core system, again what I'm going to call the neurocore from here on out, your neurocore can be faulty. And if you don't understand what the signs are of this faulty system, you just go on with your life until you have pain, and then you're thinking about everything. Your autonomic nervous system that should be voluntarily supporting, protecting, and stabilizing you isn't doing its job. Now when you get up, you actually have to think about how in the heck am I going to get off this chair and stand up and move around, right? So before we get there, let's learn to be proactive instead of reactive to our body's aging process and this repetitive posture of sitting that we're all taking, and really understand what happens when our core is not functioning well. So it's a dual neurofascial stabilizing system. What's the dual? It's the core that I just mentioned, the muscles and fascia that stabilize around our entire torso, our diaphragm, our deep abdomen, not rectus abdominis, transversus abdominis, which is a muscle and fascial continuum that has a very horizontal shape to it compared to the diaphragm, which is more vertical. So we could actually call the fascial continuum, I got this from Gil Hadley, that the diaphragm could be the abdominals, the verticalis, and transversus horizontalis. So we've got these systems that are interdigitating with one another. There's no separation in this system, and it is creating a cylinder. And the diaphragm and that respiratory motion that occurs will inherently have a signaling to our pelvic floor. So if our diaphragm is loaded with stuck stress, which is what I always try to teach you guys with the rest assess, is loaded with stuck stress, you're feeling a lot of tension in your shoulders, you tend to walk around like this. Don't think that's a neck problem, that's a diaphragm problem, it's a core problem. And I point out 4 common imbalances that many of us possess that are left unaddressed from day to day. And the 4 that I tend to call out, and we're going to talk about it, we're going to practice it today so that you guys really understand this. The 4 most common imbalances are the ones that are an indication of neurocore inefficiency. What it's saying is that the neuromyofascial channel is out of balance because the dual, not just the deep cylinder, there is another fascial continuum that doubles back over this structure that we call the rooted core, which contains a muscle called psoas. And this muscle drives itself down through your spine, cups around your iliac crest and down into the thighs. But the fascial continuum continues through the adductors. It creates a septum between the adductors and your hamstrings. It creates the popliteal sac behind your knee. It drives itself deep in between your 2 lower leg bones where the interosseous membrane is, cups over your talus bone, and is the center point of your foot. So for those of you who have ever done the foot treatment, if you feel like you have a bad back or neck problems, start with your feet. It's one of the best areas to start so that your ground force reaction can be more balanced, your nervous system can regain its connection to all of the dome-like structures in your body, from the arches of your feet to the arches of your hip bones to the pelvic basin to the diaphragm to the pleura of the lungs, roof of the mouth, orbit of the eye, crown of the head. There's domes everywhere in your body. And ideally, when we walk, at some point, those central domes actually move about one another. But for a lot of us, we're stuck in a tuck. So I want to show you this, okay? So a lot of people, we can actually be trained into these postures, but for a lot of us, it's because of the repetitive posture of sitting. Our pelvis gets stuck in a tuck. And you guys are going to hear me talk about tucking and tilting today. So, you know, like for my fighters, my boxers and everything, they're standing in that kata position, that strike position, so I can kick you, right? So the pelvis gets tucked under, right? But for a lot of people, this is their natural posture, right? From just sitting. And so we get stuck in this tuck where psoas, this neuromyofascial channel that grounds us, becomes locked into position. And when this pelvic dome stays in a tuck, we can't really stand like this in an upright posture. So what does our pelvis do? If it tucks, it deviates forward. And if my pelvis goes forward, my ribs go back and my head carriage goes forward. And there's that lousy posture that a lot of us have. So the problem with this is that to have good stability and balance, the center of your core, your pelvic basin, the center of gravity needs to be in your pelvic basin. Ideally, it's right here at S2. It's sitting in the pelvis. But if our pelvis is stuck in a tuck and deviated forward, technically, our center of gravity is behind us. And you can't have a center of gravity not in a body. So what does the nervous system do? It takes the body and it transitions it forward, but now our center of gravity neurologically seems to move up a notch. And where it gets stuck is in a space. You cannot have a center of gravity not in the body, but also not in a space. You need the center of gravity in a mass because that's what's being drawn to the earth. Am I making sense on this? Right? So this is what's happening is for a lot of people that pelvis is so tucked, we have this flattening of our low back. And then we do exercises that we think are going to strengthen our core. And do you know what we do? We strengthen ourselves into the posture that we're already in, rendering a lot of the things that we're doing not only useless, but actually causing us to become a stronger, more dysfunctional body. Do you get what I'm saying, right? You're actually getting better at managing the instabilities that you have rather than actually restoring your core stability. So today we're going to reverse that. And I'm going to show you some of my very, very favorite moves of melt. And we're going to do these together. And we would want to add to these techniques some hydration to get ourselves nice and juicy. Again, I only have an hour with you guys, but we want to go through a couple of the very foundational sequences of melt, hydrate you up a little bit, and we're going to do 4 things. We're going to do the rebalance sequence, which is profound because it is activating the neuromyofascial channel. We want to do a tuck and tilt challenge with a core challenge. It's one of the best ones that we can do, and we might even throw in an advanced core challenge. I'd like to do a plank with you guys and recreate your planks and see if we can actually get you to navigate a plank that will actually activate the deep stabilization mechanism like Wonder Twin powers, the reflexive and rooting mechanism. And if you do it right, your body is going to shake like a leaf far more than any other core technique that you've ever done if we're executing this one correctly. And if we've got time, I want to do a move called a bent knee extension. And this is really to work on a region of the pelvis that is very inhibited, the lower fibers of glutes, right? We have 80% of our gluteal muscles are tied into TFL and into the tensor fascia and down through the iliotibial bands. This whole region, it's interdigitating into a fascial encasement. But 20%, the lower 20% is actually driving right into the femur. And those are the ones that get inhibited because we sit for so many hours in a day. And as those muscles become inhibited, it is one of the things that contributes to more tucking. And again, transitioning movements up above. Now, for those of you who stand all day long, don't think that you're like privy to this not happening, because chances are you sat at some point like a kid in a chair for many hours. So don't think that just because you stand up today erases the neurological patterns that you developed between the ages of 0 and 2 and beyond. Okay? So now what you have is weakness in your glutes that is going to cause excessive compression in the lumbar spine and an overactivation of the upper fibers of glutes. And when the upper fibers of glutes and the internal hip rotators are out of balance, you get things like sciatica, you get piriformis syndrome, you get back pain, you walk with a limp, your hips get out of balance, all because of neurological timing being faulty. So what we're going to also do is neurologically reintegrate these deep stabilization components of your core, as well as that region of the lower fibers of glutes. That's our objective today. I hope that you're up for doing this. So the very first thing we're going to do is a quick body scan, because we want to see that even if we're doing mostly NeuroStrength, do we change what we feel when we lie back down on the ground? And you are going to need a melt roller. For those of you guys who are new to melt, melt uses a soft body roller. This has a lot of pliability compared to other rollers. If you don't have a roller like this and you're using a hard roller, you have two options. You either put a towel over it so that it has a soft cushion. You could even maybe fold up a yoga mat so that the yoga mat gives you some cushion, or a towel over your roller. Otherwise, roll up a yoga mat or roll up a towel and lie on that. Okay, so let's start with this by lying on our backs with our palms faced up and our arms and legs extended. And we're going to do a quick body scan. And I had pointed out that there are 4 common imbalances that many of us possess that are left unaddressed from day to day. And the 4 I'm going to call out are the ones that can explain to you when the neuromyofascial channel has some imbalances into it. It's just a distinctive body resting place that our body tends to fall towards. And you know, just notice if you have these, okay? So what you do is you lie on your back, and the first thing I'm going to invite you to do is just begin to focus on breathing in and breathing out. And don't think of anything else except feeling when you inhale, your body expands beyond your skin. You're expanding as you inhale, letting the energy expand out of you. And as you exhale, bring all of the energy back in. And just do that twice, just inhaling and expanding, feeling your body expand, and then exhaling and feeling your body retract. So to do a body scan assess, you have to learn how to use body sense. So what I mean by this is don't use your common senses of touch, movement, or vision. I just invite you to close your eyes, listen to my voice, continue to focus on your breathing, and without moving or looking up at your body, begin to notice the areas of your body that are touching the floor. I'm going to define those as masses. And just from head to toe, just notice what's on the ground. And then notice what areas of your body you feel off the ground. Now, in your upper body, when we have a lot of accumulative stress that is altering the neuromyofascial channel, where you don't have this nice resting position for the diaphragm, you will notice that in your upper back, you're lying mostly on your shoulder blades. And if you're not sure where your shoulder blades are, a good way to tell is just bring your arms up for a second and shimmy your shoulders, and you'll feel those bones hitting the ground. And then when you drop your arms back down, are you noticing those are what are pronounced into the ground, rather than go with your mind just below your mid-rib basket. So the mid-ribs below the shoulder blades and between ideally are more weighted than the blades. So if you're feeling like, no, I actually think my blades, I'm really noticing my blades more, just make a note of it. Second thing I want you to notice, and you can use your finger as a guideline if you want to let you use touch here. Don't touch your low back, but if you put your finger in your belly button, does the arch of your back feel like it goes beyond the belly button? Are you feeling more lift in your spine above the navel? You might actually feel like it's more lifted up here in the midribs than it is down below the belly button. Notice that. That's a second common imbalance. That's a diaphragm that's loaded with stuck stress, again, altering the neuromyofascial channel. And if the diaphragm's loaded with stuck stress, the pelvic diaphragm, this other arc, is also going to be displaced. So instead of feeling like you're lying on 2 evenly weighted butt cheeks, you'll become aware that either you're noticing your tailbone's very pronounced to the ground, or one butt cheek feels like it's much more weighted and spread out than the other. And the fourth one is to notice the back of your thighs. When we have a lot of accumulative stress and imbalances in the neurocore, the back of the thigh masses will feel more like spaces off the ground. You actually will feel like the back of your thighs aren't really touching the ground at all on one or both sides, so notice that. This neuromyofascial channel, when it is out of balance, when you have all your weight on your shoulder blades, your mid-back feels very high and tense, your tailbone is on the ground and the back of thighs are off the floor, it can cause 2 effects. One is if I invite you to scan your body and relax some of muscles in your thighs and your shoulders, you might feel that you voluntarily just relaxed, which is saying that your body's working awfully hard unless you're thinking about helping it relax. And that's a problem. We want to be able to rest naturally. So notice if you had to voluntarily help your body deepen in its relaxation. Last thing is to divide yourself into a left and a right half from ear to heel. Do you feel balanced from left to right? Just think, left side, all of my masses, right side, all of my masses. Do my left-right halves feel the same, or do I feel like one side overall has more weight or one leg feels longer? Okay, and if you're noticing that imbalance, just remember it, because that is autopilot inefficiency. Those parts of your body that are trying to stabilize you aren't doing so well, and so we're going to see if we can fix it. So we're going to be lying the length of the roller. You could also use the half roller, curved or flat side up. It's really up to you. If you have scoliosis or any kind of spinal disorders, SI joint dysfunction, pelvic pain, oftentimes the half roller is a much better approach, putting the flat side up. But if you're going to do this with me on the full roller, we're going to go ahead and get our bottom to be right at the end of the roller, and you just roll yourself on up and lie down onto the roller so that your head is on the roller. And what I'm looking for is that your feet are hip width apart. They're not together in Tadasana, so if you want to know what hip width is, put your feet together, send your heels outboard like a triangle, like a pizza pie, keep your heels where they are, turn your toes out like a letter V, and then put your heels in line with that. And that's a nice position for you to be in. Once you're here, lying the length of the spine, you're going to put your arms on the ground, and the very first move you're going to do is called gentle rocking. And what I'm looking for is an opportunity for you to tip your body masses and catch yourself with one arm, tip your body masses and catch yourself with the other arm. And just continue to rock her back and forth. This is a reconnect technique. It's a way to help your autopilot reconnect to your center of gravity and give your autopilot time to tune back into the neuromyofascial channel. You're lying on your spine. That never happens in a normal day. When we lie on our back, we lie on our masses. So if you're lying on your spine, it actually alters neural signaling. The compression to the spine can actually increase the stress response. So we rock for 30 seconds to minimize stress increase and to tune into the channel that stabilizes us. Come back to a center point. This is going to be important for a number of moves that we're going to do. Is called tucking and tilting. So you're going to put your hands on the front of your pelvis. I like doing it like a pizza pie. And we're going to try to tuck our pelvis so that the pubic bone curls toward our nose. And we're going to stay here for a moment, noticing that your back has been elongated to the roller. I want you to notice, though, has your belly paunched up into your hands? Are you pushing into your feet or squeezing your butt cheeks? If you're doing any of those things to hold this pose, cut it out. Maintain your tuck. Think about lightening your feet on the floor, and think about engaging some awareness into the abdomen. Then we're going to push our fingertips onto our pubic bone, and we're going to move our pubic bone away from our belly button, and we're going to allow the sacrum, or the back of the pelvis, to land back atop the roller. That should increase your low back curve somewhat. Notice if your ribs are now projectiling themselves to your ceiling. Okay, so we didn't invite the ribs to move, so let's practice it again. Tucking, you're going to curl your pubic bone towards your nose. You're going to lose some of your low back space. You're not pushing into your feet to get there. Keep your ribs in the same place. Feel free to put your hands on your ribs, and then untuck your pelvis and actively participate in sensing the back of your pelvis landing atop the roller. Your low back curve has lifted away. We're going to do this 5 times, and I would encourage you to breathe as you do it. So if you take an inhale when you're still, and then exhale and tuck, take another sip of air, and then exhale and tilt. Again, a little breath in, exhaling and tucking, and then a breath in, and exhaling and tilting. You're going to do this 3 more times, and again, start to notice what's not moving, what's staying stable. As you exhale and you tuck, we're not pushing into our feet, squeezing our butt cheeks, or lifting our hips. And as we take the breath in and exhale and go to the tilt, our ribs are staying quiet, the low back curve and the pelvis are what are moving, the legs stay relaxed. 2 more times, exhaling and curling your nose towards the pubic bone to the nose, exhaling and tilting away. As I inhale and then I exhale and I move, sometimes I feel like the tuck is like a tidal wave crashing into my belly button, and a tilt is the undertow of the ocean running over my spine and returning my pelvis back to that tilt. So now find a place in between the two. You're not actively participating in tucking or tilting. You're just going to find a nice neutral position. 1 hand on your chest, 1 hand on your belly. Now not only are we going to take focus breaths, we're going to take them in a direction. You're going to take 3 slightly slower than normal inhalations. Breathe in, And feel your top and bottom hand expand to the sky as much as your back body is expanding to the roller, and then exhaling and feeling your body go back to the midline. 2 more times. Inhaling. Slow down your breath as much as you need to feel your top and bottom hand express a lift equally, and then exhaling. And again, inhaling, expanding the chest and the abdomen as the back body also gets to expand toward the roller, and then exhaling. Now take both hands on the sides of your ribs, and in the same fashion, 3 slightly slower than normal inhalations into width, breathing into the sides of the body, feeling your ribs expand outward, and then exhaling, feeling your ribs return to the midline. Perhaps even when you inhale, feeling your waistline is expanding, the pelvic basin is expanding laterally. We're moving outward, we're imagining our body expanding widthwise, and then exhaling. One more time, breathing in width, breathe in under those armpits as well, and then exhaling. One more direction. One hand all the way down onto your pubic bone or between your legs. One hand up onto your collarbones or your throat. This time I want you to make a breath. Channel the vibration of your diaphragm through your organs into your pelvic floor. Let the lungs fill north all the way to the collarbones, passing the collarbones up into your ears. Exhaling, feeling your body return to that midline. Again, inhaling, feeling as you inhale, the pelvic floor gets to widen, the top of the lungs get to fill, get the breath into every aspect of length through your body, exhaling, returning everything back to midline. One more time, breathing length. And then exhaling, noticing if your body lifts or tips as you do those breaths. Don't stop that from happening. Now we're going to take our breath into another focus to activate the core reflex. One more technique called the reflexive engagement. It's called the 3D breath. You're going to take both hands on your belly. One time, just take a nice 6-sided breath into all 6 sides of your body. Let your natural exhale come out of your body. Again, feel how the inhale expands you, the exhale naturally retracts. We're going to enhance that hugging sensation that's naturally occurring. You're going to take your 6-sided breath in, and on your exhale, you're going to make an SH sound until there's no breath left. Shh. And when you get to the end of your exhale, don't inhale, hold that, feel the squeezing that's happening, pelvic floor, waistline. Inhale, expand it, let it go. Try an S sound. See if you can feel as you exhale, the abdomen slowly engages inward, not just front to back, but side to side, top to bottom. It's like you're hugging a baby inside your belly. You're giving your organs a loving squeeze. And then again, inhaling, letting it go. Try one more sound. Try an HA sound. Whatever draws your attention to your pelvic floor lifting, the waistline narrowing, and your front back body coming together, one of those 3 sounds, pick it again. Notice what that feels like. You're not squeezing your butt cheeks. This is deep inside the body. This time, inhale, let it all go. Let your natural exhale initiate the breath, and then with your mind, feel and follow that contraction. See if you can find it without forcing exhalation, but actually enhancing it with your conscious awareness. That's called finding your core, right? So inhaling, letting your body naturally expand. Let your natural exhale initiate the breath. Don't get bossy on the initiation, but then as you go, see if you can find your core. Now remember what that feels like, because we're going to use that in everything else we're going to do. Go back and do a little bit of gentle rocking. And then when you're ready, you're going to straighten out one of your legs. You're going to slide your pelvis, then your shoulder, then your head off the roller, and then just push the roller away from you and lie flat on your back again with your palms faced up and your arms and legs extended. So that first sequence, what we're looking to find is an activation of our neural core. So if we've activated it through the core reflex, you might notice that there's some changes in the presentation of your masses and spaces. So in your upper body, notice if your ribs feel a little bit more relaxed below the shoulder blades. That's a great change in the body. If you started out with a high tensional sense of lifting in the lower ribs and the mid-back, notice if that mid-back is more relaxed and you're feeling more of a distinctive lift in the lower part of your lumbar spine. Great transition if you've noticed that. In your pelvis, if you started off feeling very offset from left to right or a lot of tailbone orientation to the ground, notice if your butt cheeks feel a little bit more balanced or if the back of the thighs have settled to the floor. If you're noticing any changes in the masses, it's a good indication that just tapping into the neuromyofascial channel directly can actually affect your alignment. So just notice that. But the other thing we want to notice is, have we helped our autopilot reacquire a connection to our center of gravity? If you go back and divide yourself into a left and a right half, and again, breathe in and feel your breath expand beyond your body. You might notice that the breath goes further. And as you exhale, noticing if you can relax any voluntary muscles. Maybe you don't need to relax anything. And notice your left-right halves. If before you're feeling very offset to one side, notice if now you feel more balanced. If you're feeling more balanced, great indication that we've done some good work just starting off with our first piece of a sequence. So you could just do that one technique. I would be thrilled if you could do that at the end of the night, about an hour before you go to bed. Really helps you. Just with sleep, it'll help you wind down. Okay, so now we want to work on our rooting core, the rooted core. So we're actually going to tap into hydrating and giving some love to our psoas, which again is a muscle that attaches both sides of our spine into our thighs. It is a stabilizer and a communicator for stability in our body. And again, when this thing is faulty, we tend to have a lot of hip and low back pain as well as knee issues. So you see, I've bent my knees, my feet are on the floor. I'm going to engage my core. I can always make that SH sound if I need to. I'm going to lift up my hips and I'm going to bring the roller underneath the back of my pelvis. It is not on my low back, it's on my pelvis. How do I know it's on my pelvis? If I put my hands on the top of my pelvic bones, do I have my little guy here, right? So I'm going to have my pelvis on so that the top of my hip bones, those are, if I run my hands over it, I'm not going to hit the roller, right? So I'm on the wide surface of the back of my pelvis so that my iliac bones have the supported weight of the roller, okay? And again, you could be on the half roller if you wanted to as well. Another way you can tell when you've got the roller in a good place is if you bring your knees into your chest and you fold your knees all the way in, there's these two bony prominences on the back of our pelvis called the PSIS, posterior superior iliac spine. Those little bones will feel like they're actually on the curved side of the roller, kind of tipping on your side. So that again, if I move my knees away, the wide part of the back of my pelvis, my roller is right here supporting that whole pelvic basin. Okay, so now once I have that, I'm just going to rock my knees a little left to right. We want to activate the core, and so a great way to start to that process is by hydrating the connective tissues that we're going to be working on. So right now, as I rock left and right, I'm rocking right over my SI joint and my pelvic bones. I'm going to tip my knees over to my right side. I'm going to find my core. So again, I can make my SH, SE, or HA sound. And I'm going to create SI joint shearing. So I'm going to pin the skin against the roller, and I'm going to make these very, very small movements. It's so tiny on the SI joint. They don't need to be big motions. So this is a direct shear. I'm directly affecting, pinning the skin and creating small circles. I could also stay leaning toward my right side, and I could do an indirect shear. I could circle the right leg that I'm leaning toward. And again, notice that nothing else is moving. My abdomen is staying completely relaxed. My shoulders are relaxed. I could also bring my legs together and very subtly march my knees forward and back. And I want you to see how my legs are moving here, because the move we're about to do, called the core challenge, the leg motion is going to look very similar to this, with the knees staying relaxed. And then I'm going to bring my legs back together. I'm going to pause. I'm going to tip my knees over to the other side. And I'm going to repeat that same thing. I'm going to create these small circles. Both of my legs, again, keeping my core nice and relaxed here. I can also circle the one leg that I'm leaning toward. Again, that's an indirect shear. So my pelvis is staying relatively neutral. I'm moving the femur, the connective tissue on the inside of my pelvic basin is getting the tug. I could also, again, bring my knees back together, and really subtly I can march my knees forward and back. You've got options here. You could pick 1, 2, or all 3 when you do this on your own. The one that feels better for you is the one I want you to do. And then same thing, I'll go ahead and I'll bring my legs together. I'm going to pause here for a second on that angle. And then I'm going to bring my legs back to the center. Now we're going to be doing a move called tucking and tilting, but we want to try a modified tuck and tilt first. We'll just do a quick little hydration here. So feet on the floor. If I invite you to go back to your tucking, do you remember what tucking was? Pubic bone curls towards your nose like a crashing wave. I'm not pushing into my feet or squeezing my butt cheeks to acquire that. And then as I untuck my pelvis, I'm not allowing my ribs to come with me. My mid-back is staying nice and relaxed. My feet maintain their lightness. So 3 times, I'm going to tuck my pelvis. I'm going to tilt my pelvis. Where is this action coming from? It's not coming from my legs. It's not coming from my torso. It's coming from my deep core. So again, if you exhale as you tuck, and you take a sip of air, and you exhale as you tilt, you're going to activate the natural core movement and the core activation, which can just be good for you. Okay, so keep your right foot on the floor. I want you to tuck your pelvis, and I want you to bring your right knee in towards your chest for a move called bent knee press. We're just going to get a little bit of hydration to the superficial front line of our body. So just getting a little bit of a tensional pull on the front of your thigh. Again, I want you to think your foot is really planting to the ground. You're energizing your knee over your toes. Your hips are staying in the same position. You're only using this left knee towards your chest to amplify the tuck, which is moving away from your knee reaching. And then we're going to let that go. We're going to put your left foot on the floor. Right leg's going to come up again. We're going to tuck our pelvis, and we're going to energize our pubic bone towards our nose as we energize our left knee over our toes. So again, my footing is decent. It is flat. It is focused. I am having a slight bit of compression. Not so much I get a hamstring cramp. Not looking for that. And then I'm going to go ahead and let that go. So just bringing a little hydration into the pelvis. Now, before we do this next technique, lift up your hips, make sure that that roller is still in a nice sweet spot on the back of your pelvis. You're going to place your hands on the front of your thighs, bringing your thighs to a nice 90-degree angle. Run your palms down your thighs, fingertips poke over the knees. You're going to take a breath in here. On an exhale, nothing's going to happen except you finding your core. Shh. And now press your thighs into your hands as you continue your exhale. Notice if your legs have just done this, where they've come up, heels are remaining slack to the butt cheeks, no quadricep. So again, inhale, ease back the pressure. Exhale, you're pressing your thighs towards your hands. Nothing should change because your arms are like steel posts locked out. Collarbones are wide. Keep your thigh pressure. Take another sip of air, and on an exhale, this time find your core and then try to tuck your pelvis and keep that exhale going. Shh. Take a sip of air. Exhale, keep your thighs pressing into your hands, keep your ribs quiet, and try to tilt your pelvis, feeling the thigh bone sinking into the sockets, maintaining your pressure on your hands. Exhaling and tucking, keeping the thigh pressure constant, ribs constant. Exhale and tilting, thighs constant, ribs constant. Got to think a lot to move a little. Exhaling and tucking. Sip of air, exhale and tilting. Last one. Exhaling and tucking. Taking a sip of air, exhale and tilting. Okay, maintain the tilt atop the roller. No movement, low back decompress. Take a breath in on an exhale. Make your SHS or HA sound as you do it. You are pressing your thighs towards your hands. Your ribs are nice and wide. Your pelvis maintains a tilt on the top of the roller, sinking the back of the pelvis gently atop the roller. Inhaling, easing back the intention to compress. Exhaling, find that subtle bit of compression. Thighs to hands, ribs to floor, pelvis to the top of the roller. Keep everything the same except take your right hand, cross it over your left thigh. Keep your left thigh and your left hand pressing together. Take a breath in. On an exhale, core challenge, you're going to let that right leg lower down to the floor. Notice that my knee is not what's changing. I'm opening up my hip. Let the leg suspend here. It's floating over the floor. You're going to take a breath in. On an exhale, press your thigh to your hand more. Keep the pelvis in a tilt. Slowly back pedal that thigh bone back up into the socket. Right thigh, right hand together. On an exhale, your left leg is going to lower down nice and slow. Feel yourself opening up the front of your hip. That's where you want that length. Hold here. Take a breath in. On an exhale, thighs pressing into the hand nice and slowly, returning that leg, feeling it sink into the socket. Move slowly as you go. Let's do it one more time. Left thigh, left hand together. On an exhale, right leg lowers on down. Once that leg is hovering over the floor, you're going to pause. You're going to take a sip of air. Keep your pelvis on a tilt. Exhaling, returning that leg on back home. One more time, taking a breath in. On an exhale, you're going to let that left leg lower on down. You're going to pause. You're going to take another sip of air. And then on the exhale, returning it. We're going to do an advanced core challenge. We're going to really see if we can make a change here today. Left thigh, left hand stays together. Take a breath in. On an exhale, right leg is lowering down. Remember, your pelvis is atop the roller. Your ribs are relaxed on the floor. You're going to pause here. Take a sip of air. On an exhale, find your core, and now open up the front of the hip and kick the leg long. Once your leg goes into extension, now tuck your pelvis as much as you can towards your nose, thighs pressing into the hand. Take another sip of air. On your exhale, bend your knee, let the hip sink back in, return the leg, and bring the pelvis back to the tilt right atop the roller. One more time on the other side. Right thigh, right hand together. Firm compression, ribs are staying neutral. Take a breath in. On an exhale, your left leg is going to lower down. You're going to pause there. Don't move once your leg is here. Make sure the pelvis is in a tilt. We're going to take a sip of air. Keep your thigh pressure constant. Exhaling, find your core. Kick that leg out low and long, and then tuck your pelvis. Scoop the pubic bone in towards your belly. Press the thigh into the hand. Hold, hold, hold. Take one more sip of air. Exhaling, and then again, slowly bending the knee, letting the hip sink back into the socket, and bring the leg back home. Bring your feet back down to the floor, and let's see if you can tuck and tilt better now. Tuck your pelvis under and tilt your pelvis away. And notice if you feel like you have more interplay in the pelvis than you did before, tucking and tilting. So now lift up your hips, bring the roller out from underneath your body, lie flat on your back, palms faced up, arms and legs extended. Now, if we've activated the rooting core, the rooted mechanisms, the activation of psoas properly, your low back, you might actually feel like you're generating heat. You might feel like the lift of your lumbar spine is actually more lifted, only the curve is near your pelvis, and you're feeling more of your ribs on the floor than perhaps you ever have. And you might also notice that you have less weight on your shoulder girdle, more on the mid ribs. You might notice that your butt cheeks are more relaxed to the ground. The back of the thighs may have settled entirely to the floor. Notice if you're feeling these changes. And again, tap into the neuro core. Take a breath in. Let your body relax and expand your breath well beyond your skin. Exhaling, bringing in all the good energy that's around you. Notice your body from left to right. Do you feel more balanced from left to right? Notice if you've got that balancing effect. Okay, bend your knees. Roll yourself on your side. Come on up to sitting. And let's talk about another move. Now, the lower fibers of glutes are part of a spiral line, and we have these things they call serapes. We have these spirals throughout the entire body. We're a sagittal body, meaning that we move forward most of the time. We're not walking sideways or doing the grapevine down the street. And because we're so sagittal, oftentimes our lateral stability becomes inhibited and weak. And the lower fibers of glutes, which are one of the support structures for the basin of the pelvis, gets faulty. It gets very inhibited because of the volume of time we spend sitting or standing with a tuck. So we're going to try to activate the lower fibers of glutes, and this is neurological reintegration. I get it. Everybody's done, these things that you do in your sculpt classes, 1,000 of these, all your pulses and everything else, which I appreciate. And that's going to work the back line. That's going to work your superficial back line. So you're going to be working a little hamstrings, a little glutes, a little low back. But what we want to do is override the compensatory patterns that many of us possess in the upper fibers of glutes. Upper fibers of glutes are going to want to carry the activation first. Your lumbar spine is going to want to go second. Hamstrings third. The lower fibers of glutes are like a sleeper muscle. They're taking a nap until you tend to wake them up. So we're going to try to wake them up. The secret of this is most often when people do an extension of the leg, the natural tendency for extension for most of us is to actually go into external rotation as we extend, right? So we extend outward. Now, I'm not saying, again, there's anything bad about that, but you're working more recruiting upper fibers of glutes, and you're getting tight and short where we already are locked tight and short, which means inhibition. So what we want to do is get the elongated, kind of slacker muscles to fire first. So we're going to override the natural tendency for external rotation by working on an internal rotated leg. And I'll try to do this in a couple of different angles so that you can see me here, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is come atop the roller literally with your bladder, so hopefully you don't have to go to the bathroom here. So your pubic bone, my pubic bone, this thing, is on the curved side of the roller. Can you see that? So my iliac bones are kind of floating sort of into the top region, and what's sitting on the roller is the front of my pelvis, okay? So once I've got my body in this position, I'm gonna take my arms into external rotation. I'm going to try to flare my back a little bit. I'm going to tuck my pubic bone toward the roller so that what I'm already in is an extended leg. I'm already in extension. I'm going to bend my knee. That's closer to, this is my left leg. I don't know if that's what it is, how you're seeing it. But once I'm here, I've already most likely fallen faulty. So if I have shortness in my front line, my shoulders have dropped down, my lumbar spine has gone into the floor. So I want to now reset with my knee bent. I'm going to tuck my pubic bone back toward the roller. I'm going to feel like I'm peeling paint off the floor. I'm pulling my arms toward the roller. And once I'm here and the bottom of my ribs are up, I'm now going to internally rotate my left thigh so that my leg, do you see how it just went into what looks like external rotation, but this is internal rotation. I'm internally rotating my thigh to get my foot wider than my knee. Once I'm here, tucking my pubic bone toward the roller, I'm going to keep that. I am now thinking I am energizing my left knee toward my right ankle. It's an idea more than a thing. And then I'm going to try to lift my leg off the ground. If you have a faulty pattern, your leg is already starting to fall apart into the midline, which no worries, we're just going to fix that. So once your leg is up here, we're going to keep it here. I'm going to invite you to tuck your pelvis again, energize your knee, and now try to lift the leg up 1 more inch. If your leg is shaking, you are in the right pathway. This is going to fatigue super quick. We have 4 to reintegrate. You're going to try to tap your knee down and lift the leg up and pause. Tap it down, lift up and pause. So small a movement. Tap down, lift up and pause. 1 more time, tap down, lift up and pause. Without stopping, this is a pattern. You tap and lift 1, tap and lift 2, tap and lift 3, tap and lift 4, and release it all the way down. So if that felt like the hardest thing that you've done all day, you've done it right. If it was easy, you're in the wrong pathway. So again, I can make this look really big and really easy, right? I could sit here and do it like this, but again, my leg is going to go into external rotation, and before my lower fibers of glutes ever have a fighting chance to do anything, I'm already faulty recruiting. So again, what we're doing is neurologically reintegrating the timing of the deep stabilization mechanisms of your pelvis, okay? So this is not an exercise, this is neurological reintegration. We have a sensory motor problem and we're going to fix it, okay? So again, I put my pubic bone on the roller so that it's on the curved side of the roller. My pubic bone is into the curved side of the roller, my hip bone's sitting more onto the front side of the roller. I am actively participating in tucking. So you've got to keep that tuck. That's active participation, don't lose it. Hands are in external rotation. Again, I'm going to think about flaring the bottom of my ribs, but allowing my collarbones to be wide. So it's like as if my sternum was a headlight to be aiming towards my thumb. So I'm really focused on what's staying stable rather than what's moving. Once I've gotten everything in position, I'm not going to focus on bending my knee. What I'm going to focus on is what happens when I bend my knee. So notice your spine and your pelvis, bend your knee. Did anything change above the roller? If your body is now hanging out down here, we have some more work to do. You should do more hydration techniques of melt and get the neural timing back in the front body. Okay, but if we've done it well and you're holding yourself here, your pubic bone is still curling, you are already reintegrating by trying to hold your body in this position, pulling the elbows towards the roller. You're going to take your foot into an outward position so that you are doing internal rotation. Let's just try that 3 times. Bringing that leg outward. 2, and 1. Keeping that letter V shaped. Again, check in, tuck your pelvis. Shoulders are wide, collarbones are open. You're going to try to lift your knee off the ground. Again, notice what's happened, okay? Brain's going through a file cabinet, wondering why on earth lower fibers of glutes are trying to do anything right now. So again, we're going to override some compensation. Keep your leg up, tuck your pelvis, energize that right knee towards your left ankle. Foot is wider than your knee. And again, you're going to try to come up 1 more inch. And then we're going to come down, tap, lifting it up, and tap. Try to lift it up and hold there. Check your tuck, tap. 1 more time, lifting. Tap it down, 4 for the pattern, no pausing. Tap and down, lift up and down, lift up and down, and 1 more time, lift up and release it down. So if you're feeling that all right here into the lower part of your caboose where your bikini lines don't like to stay, you are in the right pathway. If you're feeling it in your back, in your hips, or anywhere else, wrong pathway. It just takes practice. There are other techniques called the mini bridge and knee knockers that you might want to try. We have 1 more move I want to do. Are you ready for it? It's a plank. So you guys are already in the right pose. If you're still with me, come back into that position. Everything is exactly the same except for 2 minor changes. So let's set ourselves up again. Pubic bones curled to the foot side of the roller. Arms are in external rotation. Palms are down. Find your forearms on the ground more than your elbows. Really find this nice wide position. Pull the elbows toward the roller. Curl your toes under and lift your legs up so that your knees are off the ground. Your pelvis is the only thing touching the surface of the earth besides your forearms and your feet. Now, in this pose, you are pulling your elbows towards the roller. You're flaring your mid-back. You're going to take a breath in, and without moving anything except your pelvis, you're going to take a breath in. You're going to find your core, make your S-H-S-E or H-A sound, and then try to lift your pelvis off the roller and hold here. Hold. Pull those elbows towards the roller. Your nose is reaching over your fingers. Your heels are reaching over your toes. Hold, hold, hold. And then releasing it all the way down, just the pelvis returns. How was that? Let's do it again. Ready? You're going to take a breath in. On an exhale, find your core. Shoulders are wide, ribs are flared. Decompress the weight of your pelvis from the roller and hold. Hold, hold, hold. Really think you're pulling those elbows toward the roller. You're reaching your nose towards your fingers. Your heels are going in the opposite direction. And nice and slow, we slowly lower back down. You have 2 to go. Take a breath in. Exhale. Collarbones are wide. Shoulders are flared. Lift the pelvis up. Really think about this here. What happens if I ask you to tuck your pelvis a little bit more? Hold, hold, hold. Releasing it down. 1 more time. Take a breath in. Exhale, find your core, decompress the weight of your pelvis and hold here. We're going to try for a pattern. Nothing changes, only the pelvis. You're going to let it tap down. You're going to lift and pause. You're going to try to tap it down, lift and pause. Tapping down, lift and pause. 1 more time, tap down, lift and hold it here. Hold, hold, hold. Come up 1 more inch with your pelvis. Hold, hold. And then release it all the way down. Wow, right? So, final move to do. Go ahead and lie on your back. Here we've activated spiral lines. Those held positions are there for a reason. Drop your body back down. Okay, first of all, if your heart rate didn't go up and you're not sweating, we aren't working enough. To tap into the neuro core should stimulate your endocrine system because fascia is one big endocrine gland. Your entire autonomic nervous system should feel almost a little fatigued. And it's wonderful because you're tapping into aspects of your body that exercise does not. So just notice what's going on in your body. Notice if you feel a buzzy sensation in your hands or your feet. If I invite you to take a breath in through your torso, notice if the body can expand more than it did. Notice if you have less tension throughout your body than when you began. Notice for the common imbalances. Remember, I said if all your back weight's on your shoulder blades, mid-back has a high tensional lift, your tailbone's in the ground, or the back of thighs are off the floor. Notice if now you're feeling your ribs are more relaxed. If the low back feels lifted but relaxed in its lift, not tense. Notice if your butt cheeks have settled to the ground or the back of thighs feel more to the floor. And then divide yourself into a left and a right half. And notice if you feel more balanced from left to right. If you're feeling more balanced from left to right, it's a really great indication that on a neurological level, you've helped really channel your autonomic nervous system back to the neural core, your neuromyofascial channel. All of these neurological reflexes and mechanisms that we don't even know the names of, right? We don't know what these things are unless you're like me and you geek out over that kind of stuff and write 50-page thoughts on these things, but they're not things that we were taught, right? So why would we know how to tap into those deep aspects of our body? But beyond exercise, the beauty of these types of techniques is usually you go to a hands-on therapist to do this. But if you know how to direct your attention into the autonomic aspects of stabilization, you actually have the ability to transform your potential to stabilize. Mind-blowing, I think. And these are things that you can do every few days. Now, the beauty of tapping into the neural core is you don't need to do it every day. You could do it a couple of times a week. But the memory of these neural pathways, these are neural pathways that were there when you were a baby. You developed them if you actually got from the point of lying on your back to rolling on your belly to lifting up your head to doing that weird breathing, rocking things that babies do to tap into their core. Shh, 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 shh. That's them challenging that core activation and that core reflex, because ultimately they're going to sit up, creep and crawl, and then walk all over the place until they're running. And in those developmental phases, that's where we hardwire a lot of these neural pathways that then we layer on all sorts of weird compensatory pathways because of daily living. So time over tension overload. The older you are, the more potential you have to have imbalances in your body. But again, if you know how to reroute the pathways off of these side streets and back onto these neural highways that are going to improve stability, you're going to improve performance, precision, stability. Your joints will feel better, you'll sleep better, and you'll feel like a better person. That's the ultimate goal of the methodology. So I get it. People see the roller. I say this all the time. Yes, we use rollers and therapy balls, but we are not focused on, self-myofascial release. I'm not looking to release your fascia or have you become one with the universe in that particular regard. I would like for you to become one with yourself, love your body better, and make self-care the new sexy. I think that would be a better option than all of these other ideas. And this stuff goes a long way, guys. So you don't need to do this all the time, but utilizing some of these techniques in your self-care practice will literally change what you feel, and it's profound. So I'm going to see if you guys have any thoughts or questions. Oh, Eileen, I'm so happy you finally got that lower back to release. Well done. I know it's a challenging one for sure. Very challenging for your upper body. So Claire's saying, wow, it was kind of amazing, really tough on my upper body. What is that showing? Listen, if you can't hold your body weight up today, that's your barometer, right? There's something there that we need to work on. Last week, I demonstrated the side-lying arm fans again, and the week before we worked on this one. We are inhibited in the rotator cuff. This is the deep back arm line. This is one of these fascial continuums that stabilizes the girdle. And listen, they don't call it a girdle for nothing, right? A girdle, a corset, right? These things are places to hold pieces together. And it's important that we realize that daily living will wreak havoc on the intrinsic aspects of the shoulder girdle stability. So if we're having trouble with that, again, these were really tough moves, and these are moves that are going to be in some of the treatments in March on MOD, which is why I'm demonstrating them here so you guys can come back and maybe watch this again and again. But you'd want some of the upper body strength work, and I gave you guys some upper body stability work. It's actually where more people are faulty. Most of my clients who have neck and low back pain, when we evaluate rib mobility, their ribs do not move. They are fixed in flexion, and so they have a hard time navigating their torso. And if my torso can't move, do you know where I get really stiff? My neck and my low back, right? So we have to have stability in the spaces so that we can move our masses with freedom. So that's kind of what we worked on today. And I'm telling you, for as challenging as it is, that should not be a reason to not try it again, right? Don't shy away from something that makes you struggle a little. Challenge your body a little bit. We can't, just Om Shanti our way into stability. It doesn't work that way. Stability is a thing, and you need to push yourself a little bit. We need to do some things that are really going to activate the intrinsic aspects of stability once in a while. So I always say you can't be efficiently mobile if you're inefficiently stable. So if you activate these neural pathways and then you go to lift weights, I got to tell you, you're going to feel stronger when you lift. You're probably going to lift more weights because you're going to feel more stable, and you're going to preserve your joint function so that you don't wreak havoc on your joints like most people do who train very hard, right? So let's see what else you guys are asking me about. Wendy says, I learn more each time I follow these. Thanks for all the descriptions and geekiness. You're welcome. I'm so happy to geek out with you. What to do for the knots in the upper back? Here's the thing, Angie. I will guarantee there are no knots in any of your muscles. I've done many dissections and I've never seen a bow tie on a single muscle ever. What you have is a thickening of fascial tissue where you have weakness. And here's the thing. If you ever roll on the roller, the areas where you feel sensitivity, that's not where your muscles are strong and tight. It tends to be where we have a lot of neural inhibition and weakness. So as you compress, there's a lot of signaling that happens and your brain's like, wow, that's really going somewhere. And you kind of get tense when you compress and it hurts you more, but you're getting less benefit out of it. But if you have these sensitive areas, these areas where you feel like you have the thickening, the upper body rehydrate sequences from melt, the upper body length, upper body compression, and then adding these NeuroStrength techniques will get rid of those things. A lot of us have these little devils that are living in between our shoulder blades, and one of the treatments that we talked about maybe 3 weeks ago is the Sternal Decompress. I demonstrated the Sternal Decompress because I had gotten sick, and I showed you guys my treatment for if you're not feeling so great. And listen, what is right behind here, guys? What's the organ that's right here? Is my heart, right? And so emotional issues, stress related from emotions of any sort, can trigger an effect to create restrictions to protect. And so we're inviting the opportunity for those ribs to open up and stabilize so that our girdle can feel like a stable structure, so we can move our arms and touch things with, I think, more love and more compassion. So, today was just a day of 4 techniques, and they were powerful ones. So the Rebalance Sequence is an entire sequence from the method. I gave you guys the lower body length and neuro core and low back release treatment. So I gave you guys the core challenge and the advanced core challenge. That's a wicked one. Practice that one again. And then we did the hip extension, the bent knee extension. That's a great one to learn to do, and that brilliant plank. And even if you can only just do one reintegration, try it. All right, let's see if there's anything else here that I can talk about before I sign off for the day. I am working on a great deal of videos for a new teacher training for the hands and feet. I am glad you guys are loving this. Thank you. Let's see. Labrum in the shoulder, best moves in pre and post ops. Eileen, if you've got shoulder issues, side lying arm fan in the upper body rehydrate sequence, the hand treatment, the neck release, I would be trying to hydrate the heck out of the shoulder girdle. But again, if you guys have labral tears, you have to stabilize the glenohumeral joint. That's side lying arm fans, side lying backhand. Those are the really great ones. I also demonstrated a technique called the arm and hammer a couple of weeks ago, lying the length of the roller using the resistant band. Also great for labral tears to try to resecure the girdle itself. That one's a real gem, is arm and hammers. Somebody's got carpal tunnel. Carpal tunnel syndrome, you know what you need to work on if you have carpal tunnel is the forearm rinsing and the gliding and shearing on the forearms. If you look on this YouTube channel and you scroll down, you might find a treatment for tennis elbow. That would be the treatment I would do if I had carpal tunnel. Also working with upper body length and neck treatments are really great for carpal tunnel. You got to work in your torso if you have carpal tunnel. It's not a wrist problem, it's an upper body problem. if we're new to this, what's the first session I should do on demand, or do we just work our way through in order? If you guys are part of Melt on Demand, there's a Getting Started section. And in the Getting Started section, in the Melt Method book, the first book I wrote, there are 7 fundamental sequences of melt. The rebalance sequence, which we did today. There's an upper body and lower body compression sequence, upper body and lower body length sequence, a low back release, and a neck release sequence. 7 fundamental sequences. You want to learn to master the 7 sequences, because all of the other treatments all kind of work off of that foundation. So today we actually worked off of the lower body length and low back release sequence, and we added the core challenge and the advanced core challenge, right? If I were going to do upper body length work, we would have done some of those rebalancing techniques, and then we would add these pieces to it. So if you land the 7 fundamental sequences along with the softball hand and foot treatments, now you've got the foundation. Then you can start to go through the site, and the site has, you can just type something in the search bar. If you had rotator cuff problems, type in rotator cuff, and you'll see a whole bunch of treatments that are related to the rotator cuff. Okay, so that would be my my suggestion. I'm using your courses to get through 2 completely severed ligaments, PCL and ACL, I'm sorry, in my knee before I get surgery. The plank was challenging. Yeah, Megan, plank is really going to be challenging. If you have knee issues, you know what you might want to do, for a quickie here, is take a roller underneath your calves. I don't know if you can see me here, but I've got the roller just below my knees, so that as I come up with my pelvis, and then I lift my shins off, so that you're going to take a little bit less time against the knees. And just be mindful, don't hyperextend your knees when you're in that pose. Your knees are slightly soft in a plank. They are soft, right? So think of your knees kind of energizing down to the floor a little bit without really bending them. Just don't hyperextend, and you'll get a little bit out of that as well. Let's see, work my way through. Trigger finger, same thing, it's forearms. Trigger finger, you got to work on your forearms. The forearm treatment is like the thing you got to get to. And actually, if you go to on Melt on Demand, I talk about trigger finger in a number of those videos, so hopefully that will help you guys out as well. All right, well, guys, thank you guys so much for being a part of the session today. I really appreciate you. I'm going to be doing a lot of different videos in March on Melt on Demand. Also, Carrie Bodendorf, our Melt Master Trainer, is also going to be guest sessioning on Melt on Demand this coming week. She is doing a beautiful self-love session. So I think all of us could use a little bit of self-love. I am giving all of my love to you guys. Thank you so much for being part of the Melt Tribe. Today, please make sure that you're sipping water frequently, eat water-filled foods, be good to yourself, and do me a favor, reach out to somebody that you love and just send an I love you to somebody else and pass that love forward. Honestly, it just elevates the frequency of the whole universe, and you might completely change somebody's life by doing so. So do that for me. Thank you guys so much for being part of the Melt Tribe. I'll see y'all soon. Happy melting.